All right, so let's talk about polynomial long division. And basically what we're going to do here is we're going to take a polynomial like 3x cubed plus 5x squared plus 6x plus 4, and we're going to divide it by the expression x plus 1. So sometimes polynomials, when they divide each other, they divide nicely. Sometimes not so much. But before we do that, I want to take you back to, gosh, what, 4th grade maybe? Where you learned long division in the first place, assuming they didn't just like give you an iPad and tell you to just use the calculator on it. So you might remember doing stuff like 3,741, I don't know, I just made that number up, divided by 4. And I just want to recall that process because we're going to use the exact same process actually to do polynomial long division. It's slightly more complicated, but it's the exact same idea. So you ask yourself, does 4 go into the first term? 3. It does not. So what we do is we say, all right, well, what about 37? If I plug the 3 and the 7 together, does 4 go into 37? And it does. It goes in 9 times. It doesn't go in exactly 9 times. It goes in 9 times. 9 times 4 is 36, and then there's 1 left over. But we just, we take the largest number of whole times that it goes in. And then you do, what do? You do 9 times 4, and then you put the result down here. You get 36. And then you subtract. So 37 minus 36 is 1. And then you bring that next number down, right? So you get a 4. And then you ask yourself, same process, right? How many times does 4 go into 14? It would go in 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. And then you subtract. You get 2. You bring the 1 down. 4 goes into 21 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. You subtract 1. There's nothing else to bring down over here. There's a big blank spot. So we're done, basically. And what happens here is you can either say 935 with a remainder of 1, or you could say 935 and 1/4. And the 1/4 comes from the fact that you had 1 left over, and you were originally dividing by 4. Okay? It's going to be the exact same thing with polynomial long division. I'm going to erase this. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask ourselves, how many times does x plus 1 go into 3x cubed? Except you don't even have to answer that question. All you have to answer is how many times does the highest term here go into the highest term over here. By the way, when you do long division, you have to line these up and put it in standard form. Make sure you have the highest exponent first, then the next highest exponent, then the next highest exponent, so on and so forth. Okay, so all you have to do on this is ask yourself, how many times does x go into 3x cubed? Really, the question is, what would I have to multiply x by to get 3x cubed? That's the question. Okay, so this question mark here would have to be 3x squared. If you did x times 3x squared, you would get 3x cubed. Okay, so we're going to actually write that up there. It's going to be 3x squared is our number up there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take 3x squared and we are going to multiply it by this entire expression, and we're going to write the result down here. And we're going to try to keep like terms on top of each other. Okay, so 3x squared times x is going to give us 3x cubed. 3x squared times positive 1, since we have to multiply the entire expression there, is just positive 3x squared. This is probably the step where I lose people the most, what I'm about to do. Remember, in our long division example, this was the point where we drew a line here and we subtracted. We're going to do the exact same thing here. Be extremely careful. When you subtract, you have 3x cubed. You subtract 3x cubed. That gives you nothing here, which is what we kind of hope for. When you do this part right here, it's 5x squared minus positive 3x squared. So this is 5x squared minus 3x squared. Okay, that's pretty easy to keep in your head. What's hard is when it's like negative here, negative, negative. It can be a little hard to keep track of all that in your head. But you've got 5x squared minus 3x squared. That's 2x squared. And then what do? We bring down the next term, so plus 6x. rinse and repeat. So now the question is, how many times does x, don't worry about the plus 1 right now, how many times does x go into 2x squared? So you'd have to ask yourself, what does x need to multiply in order to get 2x squared? I'm going to say that number there would have to be 2x. If you do x times 2x, that would give you 2x squared. All right, so we're going to write that up there. We're going to say this will be plus 2x. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take the 2x and multiply it by this entire expression and write the result down here. Okay, so 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times plus 1 is just 2x. That x is on the struggle bus a little bit. All right, we're going to take this entire expression here and subtract it. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Oh, that's not what I want. That's not what I want either. There we go. Okay, so when we do 2x squared and we subtract 2x squared, that goes away. That's 0. When we have 6x and we subtract 2x, that leaves us with 4x here. And then we bring the next number down, which would be positive 4, plus 4. Okay? Rinse and repeat. How many times does x go into 4x? I'm going to say you would have to multiply by 4 to make that happen. So we'll say plus 4. Okay, so now we're going to take 4 and multiply it by this entire expression. So if you do 4 times x, that'll give you 4x there. And then if you do 4 times 1, that'll give you plus 4. And then we're going to take this entire expression and subtract it. And just by way of note here, if you have something and you subtract the exact same thing, you get 0. You can do it step by step if you want. 4x minus 4x is 0. 4 minus 4 is 0. But anyway, this is really nice. This means we have no remainder here. And so when you take 3x cubed plus 5x squared plus 6x plus 4 and you divide by x plus 1, this is the result. So I'm going to actually zoom out just a little bit here so that we can write this down and think about practically what this means. So what we're saying is that if we have 3x cubed plus 5x squared plus 6x plus 4 divided by x plus 1, the result is 3x squared plus 2x plus 4, which is great. What I want you to see here is that if we multiply x plus 1 and 3x squared plus 2x plus 4, what should the result be? I want you to think about this. If I take the x plus 1 here and I multiply it by this, what should the result be? It should be the original thing that we started with that we were dividing by in the first place. So it'll be 3x cubed plus 5x squared plus 6x plus 4. This makes sense. If you take this and divide it by that, you would get this as the leftover result. Okay, so that's a really important thing that I want you to get. Obviously, it's important to be able to know how to divide a polynomial, but that you would understand that when you divide it, you've now factored it, because that's what factoring is. It's just dividing things. You've basically broken this down into two factors, and who knows, maybe we could factor this even more. All right, let's look at another example. Okay, so we got another example here. By the way, if you're looking for an example that has a remainder, go to the next example. This one does not have a remainder. What's different and new about this one, though, is that we've got a polynomial with 4 terms here, and we've got a trinomial that's dividing it. So let's get to work. The essential question here to get started here is how many times does this term, 2x squared, go into 6x cubed? So you can think about it like this. 2x squared needs to get multiplied by something in order to equal 6x cubed. So what is that something there? Well, I would say it's got to be 3x. So if you do 2x squared times 3x, that would give you 6x cubed. All right, so 3x is going to be what we put up there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take 3x and we're going to multiply it by this entire expression. So if we do 3x times 2x squared, that's 6x cubed. By the way, these should always match. If these don't match, you messed up. All right, how about 3x times x? That's going to be 3x squared, positive 3x squared. And then what about 3x times negative 2? That's going to be negative 6x. Again, like I said, this is the most important thing that people goof up, is they don't subtract the entire thing. They don't put it in parentheses. They just put the negative sign here, and then they don't bother changing this sign or this sign. Don't do that. Don't mess up like that. All right, so these obviously drop out to become 0, so I'm not going to bother writing 0 there. What about this part? So we've got 7x squared minus 3x squared. That's going to be 4x squared. Here we've got negative 4x minus negative 6x. And if you need to, just write it out over here. Negative 4x minus negative 6x. This is the same thing as negative 4x plus 6x. So that's 2x. So hey, that's how you do it. Plus 2x, and once we're done with that, we bring down the next term. Not sure if we're even going to use it here, but we'll see. All right. How many times does the largest term, largest exponent term here go into the largest exponent term here? So how many times does 2x squared go into 4x squared? So 2x squared needs to get multiplied by something to equal 4x squared. So what would that question mark be there? I'm going to say that would need to be a 2 right there to make that work. So we'll put plus 2. And now we need to take 2 and multiply it by this entire expression here. Don't worry about the 3x because we already did that. We're just doing 2 times each one of these terms here. All right, so 2 times 2x squared is 4x squared. 2 times x is 2x. And 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Look at that. That's convenient. We are subtracting literally the original thing here is being subtracted by itself. So I know the answer is 0. If you want to go through one by one, you could say 4x squared minus 4x squared, that's 0. 2x minus 2x, 0. Negative 4 minus negative 4, which is really negative 4 plus 4, is 0. Okay. So what are we saying? We're saying that if we have 6x cubed plus 7x squared minus 4x minus 4, and we divide that by 2x squared plus x minus 2, the answer is 3x plus 2. So that's the answer, but that's how you do it. All right, let's look at one last example that has a remainder. All right, so we got 5x to the 4th minus 3x cubed plus 2x squared plus x plus 1, and we're trying to divide by x minus 1, so let's get right into it. How many times does this term go into this term? So that would be 5x cubed is what I'm going to have to multiply x by to get 5x to the 4th. Now, when we take this back and we're going to multiply this times this, put it here. Then we're going to multiply this times this and put it right here. So let's do that. So 5x cubed times x is 5x to the 4. And then if we do 5x cubed times negative 1, that would give us minus 5x cubed. We're going to take this entire expression and subtract it. So if you've got, so these, obviously these are going to be 0. When you do this one, you're going to have negative 3x cubed minus negative 5x cubed. So really it's negative 3x cubed plus 5x cubed, which gives you positive 2x cubed. Okay, so bring down the next term there. So we'll have plus 2x squared. And now the question is, how many times does x go into 2x squared? What do I need to multiply x by to get 2x squared? I'm going to say that would need to be 2x squared. Sorry, did I say squared? I meant cubed there. All right, so this right here would be 2x squared. And now we're going to multiply 2x squared by x, and we're going to multiply 2x squared by -1. So let's do that. 2x squared times x is just 2x cubed. And then 2x squared times -1 is minus 2x squared. Parentheses, subtract it. Seriously, put the parentheses. Don't be lazy. People don't put the parentheses, and then they forget to apply the negative to everything. Then they get the wrong answer. Okay, so really the only thing we have to worry about here, these become 0, is 2x squared minus -2x squared. So it's really 2x squared plus 2x squared, which is 4x squared. And then we'll bring down the next variable. So plus x. So we've got, how many times does x go into 4x squared? What do I need to multiply x by to get 4x squared? That's going to be plus 4x. Okay, so we got 4x times x, that's going to be 4x squared. And then that's going to be minus 4x. And we're going to subtract that. So we have, really the only thing we have to worry about here is x minus -4x. So that's going to be x plus 4x. So that'll be 5x. And then we'll bring down the plus 1 there. Plus 1. And the question now is, how many times does x go into 5x? Well, that's easy. That's just 5. So that'll be plus 5. So when you multiply 5 by x minus 1, you will get 5x minus 5. When we subtract that entire expression, we get 1 minus -5 is 6. Does x go into 6? Unfortunately, no. So we've got a remainder. We've got a remainder here of 6. Some people will write it like this. They'll say, okay, the final answer is 5x cubed plus 2x squared plus 4x plus 5 with a remainder of 6. You will also see another form, which I want to write here and talk about. So the answer here that most people are going to want to see is going to be 5x cubed plus 2x squared plus 4x plus 5 plus, and then remember on the example I gave you at the beginning where we had a remainder of 1, and it was originally we were dividing by 4, and we said it was like, I think like 935 and 1 plus 1/4. Okay, we're going to do the exact same thing here. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to erase that. We're going to put our remainder and then divide it by what we were originally dividing by, which was x minus 1. And so this right here will be your answer. And what's cool about this is if you take this and multiply it by x minus 1, you will get this original function that we were dividing, which makes sense. If you take the factors, that is x minus 1 and this right here, this big ugly mess, if you multiply them together, you should get this result right here. And if you don't believe me, go ahead and multiply them and you'll see that it works.